Well, joining me now via Skype from North Carolina is Andrew Jones. He's a co-director of the climate modelling organisation Climate Interactive. How disappointing is it to you that after all the warnings that we've had on climate change and, of course, the commitments made under the climate change agreement in Paris, that not only are we in a place where the level of greenhouse gases have failed to decline, actually we're hitting new record highs?
Yeah, we've been at this now 25 years of these UN talks, and we have yet to really bring emissions down, so the concentrations are going up and up. Really increases the pressure on next week's meeting in Madrid for the COP25 meeting in the UN to come up with stronger commitments from countries to get those emissions going down.
How do they come up with stronger commitments if they're failing to meet existing commitments?
Many of these countries have set up standards and goals for renewable energy, for keeping coal in the ground. And many of the countries actually are on track to meet those commitments. I don't happen to be in the one that has the increasing standards, but many of them actually are delivering upon the pledges that they made in the Paris Agreement.
I want to ask you about one point from the World Meteorological report that you just mentioned there briefly.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this report is that it doesn't just look at the carbon emissions levels, but it also looks at the concentration of these gases.
Yeah.
Now, explain to us the distinction. Why is that important?
Yeah, so the concentration is how much stays in the atmosphere after we're burning coal, oil, and gas and put CO2 in the atmosphere, and then the oceans and plants take some out. But the amount that remains, that's like the blanket over Earth. And the more we have in the concentrations, the more that blanket traps heat, and then temperature goes up. Right now, about 1 degree C, we want to keep it to 1.5. But that's the stuff that stayed in the atmosphere that's creating all of the economic and ecological disruption that we're seeing with wildfires and sea level rise and so on.
You made a quick reference there to the fact that you're in the United States, and of course we know how President Trump feels about climate change. He unilaterally pulled out of that global agreement, didn't he? I'm just wondering about the impact you think this might have had on the Paris Climate Agreement, because the WMO is saying the gap between targets and reality are both glaring and growing. I mean, has the wind been completely knocked out of this agreement?
It seems that the wind is not completely out. There are now countries coming together, and the rumors are they will be increasing their commitments. The United States is 15% of global emissions. That's large, and that we're 4% of the population. But there's still another 85% that is being accounted for by pledges that we hope will get increased in Madrid in a week. We'll have to see what happens when we're actually together there in Madrid soon. But our hope is that many of the countries of the world realize what needs to be done. Also here in the U.S., states and cities and corporations have really done a lot to pick up the slack and keep those emissions actually heading down. So we won't entirely miss our pledges that we've made here in the United States.
Right. So the momentum hasn't been completely lost on that note. Thank you.
That's right.
From North Carolina, Andrew Jones, co-director of the climate modelling organisation Climate Interactive.
You're welcome.